opens. My name ring bells, barrier sound broken. The pain grows till the veins open. Chosen, no matter how you slice it up. Same quotient, cook all summer, flamethrower. Y'all in like fam, just pray it over it. Hands move in the same motion, chain smoking. The wave ocean is. Wait, let me start over.
What up?
Eyes won't blink, I stay woken. How the word so deep,
Oh, y'all, what's the deal? How we doing? This is episode 125. It is March 24th. Applause for that. Stop the music. Yo, I gotta cook dinner. Real talk. It's already 9:15. I'm a little bit behind, but so I wanted to get on to do a half-hour show real quick because I really wanted to say some things, but I don't have a full hour today. We're not gonna do a full hour, so let's see how I can do here. How can I get all this stuff in this half hour? Let's see if we can do it. I'm hopeful. I know we can. So very quickly, I'm gonna just dive right in. The other day I was on the internet and I came across this article from Popular Mechanics, and it is an article about third states. It says a third state exists between life and death. Hold on, I'm gonna share the screen. Billy, small share. All right, boom. A third state. You know what? Let me switch the other one. Let me go the other way. Plus one. All right. And it says a third state exists between life and death, and that suggests your cells are conscious. Some scientists say it is. That was kind of a tongue twister to say. That was a lot of. So it's a complex article. You see, it's behind a paywall here. There's another version of this article that I think derives some of its stuff from the first article, but this is on the week right here, and you can see this description of a scientific discovery that relates to cells and the idea that cells in certain conditions, even after the organism that the organic cells are a part of, the organism has died, under certain conditions with certain nutrients, certain stimuli, that the cells can continue to live and even regenerate and even continue to function in other and new ways. Okay. It's very interesting stuff. These are sort of findings that are in the last couple of months or even weeks, and it's interesting stuff. It's challenging our notions of life and death. Okay, so I posted something on Facebook about this, and then it compelled me to actually, because one of the things, real talk, I'm wondering if it makes sense for me to get off Facebook altogether and really just compile things more consistently on my website. Okay, I might do that. I'm still thinking about that. But here's an article I created after the Facebook post. It is my attempt at taking the Facebook post and sort of fleshing it out just a little bit. It helped me think about it a little bit more and put words to this. And again, we're gonna try to do this now with 25 minutes. So here we go. I was intrigued by this article I found on Popular Mechanics, and there's the link. And a simpler version on the week. Both articles use the language and terminology third state to describe a complex condition of reality, a scientific realization about the enduring nature of some organic cells. So this is a quote from the Popular Mechanics article. Experts found a third state exists between life and death, where cells exhibit unexpected activity even after an organism has died. Instead of shutting down immediately, some cells continue to function, repair themselves, and even adapt in ways that challenge our understanding of biological consciousness. Okay, if cells can persist and respond after death, it could redefine our perception of consciousness at a microscopic level. Some researchers argue that this cellular resilience hints at a deeper, more fundamental form of biological intelligence. Could this quote-unquote third state mean that parts of us remain alive long after we're gone? The implications are both profound and mysterious, offering a fresh perspective on what it truly means. All right, so I've talked about this a little bit on other episodes. I'll talk about, saying like I think the scope of what is massive and large, and that we are all approaching it differently and using our language and our lenses to examine this thing. And I've talked about how I think physics, the realm of physics, is the scientific approach at understanding the forces at play in our life, but that there's also something beyond that. There's a mystical element of this thing that even physicists who prior might have considered themselves atheists, they're now borrowing language and borrowing frameworks from mystical faith traditions, concepts of the the Big Bang as the first creation, and notions of the multiverse. They have there's a realm of our experience that is completely defies the typical the typical Earth awareness. Some people are using the term 3D. I don't know if that's useful. I guess I can see that. I'm trying to examine that further. But that there's something that exists. There's a kind of a cosmic sense, and even with all the chaos that we see going on and all the challenges and things that are terrible, there's a totality of it. There's a wholeness that that occurs. I've talked about this in other episodes, and I need more time on it. So I don't actually, I feel like I'm not getting there, and it's partly because I'm thinking of the time thing. So fuck that. We're just gonna keep talking. And I'm gonna continue reading the article here. I think these are fascinating, paradigm shifting discoveries. I think this points to truth. I think we're talking about something related to truth. And as I say here, even when the popular discourse is preoccupied with President Trump, Elon Musk and crew, and all these crazy things that try to get your attention, they are intentionally trying to get your attention, to get the attention of the media, and to distract and to get everyone anxious. They are intentionally either for profit or for diversion, or to hold narratives and to feed different constituencies and bases. They are hitting you with a specific way of looking at the world every day. Let's look at this tweet, and then he went to Truth Social, and then the guy, Tesla did a thing, and it's an accounting of human man's actions. Here's this man did a thing, and this other man did a thing, and there's another man who did a thing, and that caused that other man to do a thing. There's never a deep understanding of what is going on more deeply. The intentions, the goals, the energy. This energy is a word that is a bit vague, but it serves us because I could talk about this in all of these other ways and sort of narrow out what I'm trying to point to is that's what's happening in our news, is that we focus narrowly on something, and we think in terms of the motivations of Trump or Elon Musk. We think of those as Republican or right or conservative or MAGA or something. We have these words that don't encompass the fuller spectrum of motivations and energies that cause these behaviors. And the media. Okay. Where am I? I want to talk about narrative as a constraint on our experience. Narrative as a constraint on our experience. So, in this article that's talking about third states, right? Third state, that title, that word, that term, it is a perspective and a narrative before it is anything else. Before it is anything else, as people go, oh, what is a third state? Okay. Also, so what it's okay. So not life. The very choice of third state is predicated on what? The idea that there is a first and a second state. It doesn't exist in and of itself. It's not even the label of it. We're not labeling it with some kind of a new word. We're labeling it with a word that immediately implies contrast against the other two states. The other two states that we believe are that we have a greater understanding of. So third state depends on the belief and the story that there were two separate states categories before, right? The living and the death states. Well, that's what we've been taught. That's we have the privilege of waking up every morning and breathing and experiencing and seeing, and we do know that people leave us. They leave this realm, it seems, at some point. And we have a word for that. We call that death. And so it is a contrast. And for as long as I've been alive, I've been hearing and thinking about and knowing about this story as like life is something rigid and obvious. And we have things like vital signs that we attribute to life. And then on the other end, we say there's something, the other thing is death, and that those two states are rigid and clear and obvious. And that was the thinking. But that was, and we're learning, we're understanding that was and is, and so many of the things that we hold as obvious are actually concepts. That the entire idea of some, like, being able to explain what's happening here, being able to explain what is with our words and come away with a story that is accurate about what is, that we need to arrive at a place that we're not going to be able to do that. There is no story that is going to be so clean and accurate, that's going to map on accurately. These are mythologies. And our goal, especially with the sciences in particular, want to try to help us create accurate as possible as we can mythologies, accepting that they're mythologies. And some people are going to have a big problem with this. They're not going to like, oh no, science deals in fact and this and that. I'm afraid not. I'm afraid science deals in mythology. And you know who knows that? Scientists know that.
Oh, yeah.
If you talk to people who are in the field of physics and these physicists, you watch them on YouTube, some of them are prolific YouTube creators and getting familiar, like, with direct, some of them are charismatic and they have their YouTube pages. They know that this notion of fact is something that is a little bit specious, and that's why they do so much. That's why the word theory is used a great deal more than fact. Okay, so we grew up with a theory and a mythology about life and death as two obvious and distinct, separate states of consciousness. And the third state is an emerging theory based on observations made about cells and this gradient of life and existence on the cellular level. And so, but when we try to, whatever we're looking at, whatever those scientists are looking at, and I haven't looked at things in the first hand either. I'm reading an account of an account, you know what I'm saying, like a journalist who, but the third state is immediately a contrast. If we're in an early stage of understanding what the third state of life is, if we assume that the third state is a thing, let me just say it this way. If we assume the ideas being posited in these articles, if we assume them as true, we have to assume that, first off, third states aren't new. What's new is our vernacular around third states. What's new is our ability to pinpoint third states. What's new is our ability to discuss the third state, that the third state always existed, right? And third state, this capacity to now apply language to it, is going to give us an ability to engage with it. It's going to give us an ability to talk about it. Third state is potentially a useful narrative category so that we can talk about a very complex feature of reality. I said up top here, third state depends on the belief in the story that there were two separate states categories before, living and death states. This has always been an imprecise story. Let's be clear, if we do acknowledge that a third state exists, it has always existed, even while our current history and science textbooks never helped us grasp this complexity. It was missed. It wasn't perceived. And if it was perceived, maybe we didn't have enough information, but today it seems that we have the capacity to give it a name. And then what happens? Like I said, it's immediately a genuine, thorough attempt to understand the true nature of this third state will challenge the actual word itself. So the word third state becomes useful, and it becomes interesting, and we're able to grasp it as a contrast towards what we of our prior understanding of life and death. But if we're able to examine it further, it will necessitate new words. It will necessitate prefixes. We might have, people might have to talk about early third state, late third state, things like this. Who knows? It will challenge the definition and the value of the term and the concept, and it will challenge our understanding of the other two states too. Once you've incorporated this potential third state, and like I said, early and late, you're talking about the edges of these concepts. When is something alive? When is something dead? You thought it was rigid before. We experienced it as rigid before. We told each other it was rigid before. But now, it seems that it gets blurry at certain points. And it's not that the thing itself is blurry. Life is blurry. Life is hard to describe. This experience is an interesting experience, and it engages with, if we're engaging with it well, it encompasses everything, and so it's hard to describe. But when it gets fuzzy at those edges, what happens is that we invented concepts in an effort to break this very complex thing called life down, this very complex thing called life and death, and these constructs eventually, upon deep inspection, become I don't know, at worst irrelevant, maybe at worst harmful, at worst an anchor, something that's holding you back from actually appreciating what reality is if you're attached to it. You have to again, I don't know, you have to approach this new information with an openness and understand that all the concepts and the words might need entirely new frameworks. But imagine being so attached to the old framework that you don't want to accept this deeper complexity. I mean, you can see it, you can imagine it. Some person, particularly like a Matt Walsh or a Ben Shapiro type character, right? If there's some political gain, if there's some like separation that can be exploited, to say, no, we don't accept third state. We don't accept any of this information, this depth of complexity of the human condition and of life. There is life and there's death. And that's what I was raised on. That's what my high school science teacher told me. That's what my pastor told me as well. So my religious figure, my society, my parents spoke in terms of two states of consciousness, and that's all I'm comfortable with. I don't want to accept anything further. That's very viable. That's a viable, like, you can see that because we have that all the time. We have that in other areas all the time. I think that this phenomena is ever present, and we are ever like dealing with this like challenge of squaring the intense uh barrage of new information and the complexity of reality, like squaring that against our mythologies that we are comfortable with, the mythologies that give us a sense of a reality and of what we call a normal. So I continue here. Yeah, it will challenge the definition and value of the third state concept and our understanding of the other two states. It can't help but to do that, right? And I think this is the nature of human observation, as I described. Perhaps more to the point, this is the nature of narrative. Once we apply coherent language to our observations and internalize them as a logical truth, you observe something, and you can't observe and internalize and tell a story about it except to use the language that you have at your disposal and the assumptions that you've prior accepted. That's your framework. You might think that that's the objective truth, that that's it. You got it. That is it. You are in the middle. You are in the, you've got the hard truth. But no, that is your perspective, the language at your disposal and the assumptions that you've prior accepted. And you know, that is how you see the thing. And there's an incredible power in being able to free yourself of that. That's something we might call an ego. You know, Sheeb and I, we kind of binge watch this show. You can't binge watch it. It's coming on every week. What's it called? White Lotus? Yeah, White Lotus. We just watched that, I think the 5th episode. It got a little crazy this last episode, real talk. So if anybody's watching that, check that out. White Lotus. Season 1 was dope. Season 2 was also dope. It was kind of slow for me, but it got better. Season 3, I'm enjoying. It's crazy. There's always this kind of build up and you got these characters and then it goes nutty. But in this last episode, without any spoilers, no spoilers, the young girl and the father gets to meet with this guru, this historical figure, or this guru. I think they're in Taiwan. So he's a kind of they're in a monastery and he has a very typical, monk type look and he's chilling and a lot of the other monks don't speak. This man has written books and if you're on the episode to some degree, you already know that this is where the hotel is. Okay, the hotel is in Taiwan or Thailand. I could have swore they said Taiwan. Pardon for not knowing the difference on this motherfucking thing. But anyway, here we go. It is in this episode. The monk says this thing about we are all. They're in Thailand. Thank you, Sheeps. We are all water droplets. A wave crashes, the water droplets go up in the air. That's you being born, and then it comes back down. Gravity pulls the water droplets back down into the ocean, into the sea. So when you're the water droplet, you look back at the sea with contrast. You are contrasting your position as a water droplet against this vast, powerful, vast unknown of an ocean, particularly if you have some consciousness that begins at the water droplet, as this individuated thing, then, but it comes back. It's all one thing. The language you might have about the story, and this as a child, the story you have about yourself is very different when you're 5 and you're 9 and you're 12, you know what I'm saying? And eventually you learn more and more. You understand that your parents are real people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at some point early on, you think that they're like superheroes, and then you start to see that they're people, flawed humans, and you start to realize, life is all this, but it's always against this perspective. And I think it's important to point out that there is something that is, and then there's the story we tell about it, right? There's the story we tell about it that is going to be different than what is, because we are using, as I said, we're using the language that we have at our disposal and the assumptions we've prior accepted. That is how we will approach the observation. And that is why even, cutting edge scientists and physicists will use a term like third state, because they have no choice but to engage with that. And the language, the discourse around the third state will be a contrast against the first and the second state. It will not, especially not in if the conversation is in its infancy, it won't be a raw expression of what is. It will be a contrast, because that's all we have. That's all we have. All right, so I'm gonna go full speed. Applause for that. In fact, I'm gonna do the more you know as well. The more you know, yeah. Hold on, full screen. All right, look. I have written down here why it matters, yo. I think it matters because there's a lot of reason why it matters. Okay. I'm pointing to what is. And I think we need to try to do that more. I think we need to engage with a unified discourse about what is, even against the tide of all these people hitting us with these, like, the left and the right and the right and the left. There's a reason that the Daily Wire and Fox News does this left thing so often than right. In place of an actual villain, in place of an actual bad thing, in place of an enemy, they use left as a stand-in. They use woke as a stand-in. They use immigrant. They use the division. If this was just 50 years ago, 60 years ago, they'd be more prominently using race and skin color as a thing, as a dividing line, as a meaningful separation. I've talked about the gender question so many times. This is so much of the backlash on gender expression now. I'm talking specifically about pronoun usage, for instance. Specifically about pronoun usage. The anger towards new words and new pronouns, and like the effort to include a broader range of expression in the discourse for a non-binary person to be able to very outwardly tell you, yeah, I'm he, him, she, her, they, them, all these other ones. And all it is, these are words these are symbols that point to something else. It's the start of a conversation. It's the capacity to better get to know the fullness of that person and to better set us up for a good engagement. You know what I'm saying? Why? Because in our societies, we do stuff like, I dap up dudes. When I meet a dude, I'll dap him up. That's just, I know to do that first. Or a handshake. If I meet a woman, I will hug them more often. 80% more often, I'm going to hug a woman, or also a handshake. Sometimes if I want to be neutral, if I'm intentionally neutral, it'll be a handshake. Or post-COVID, sometimes it's no hands, no, we not touching. It's just a hello, good to see you. Okay? But it's all one thing. We're all engaging and trying to communicate with each other. The separations aren't real. The separations are perspectives. It's all one thing, you know? That's what the guru was trying to say in the White Lotus, by the way. That's what so many mystics and faith teachers throughout history have been trying to point to. And I think it's important because all I see on my Facebook, I don't know about y'all, but all I see is constant attempts for division. I see it on Facebook, I see it on Instagram. I don't even turn on TV anymore. So sorry for anyone who's watching any of these like television, these old legacy TV shows, and like I said, Fox News and the Daily Wire. We've been trained in a language of separation that has outdone itself and outstayed its welcome. These distinctions have been risen to separations and not unintentionally, intentionally, right? And when you know more, when you include more of what's happening, when you understand that, for instance, like the heyday of the cable news industry and all that, like how powerfully they lead the discourse, and that like you understand the incentives, particularly when Fox News does what it does, and the incentives as Fox News is operating in the same space as other news organizations. The incentive for division, for attention, it's always been there. It pulls you. It's all one thing. It's always been there. It's been there from the early parts of this country. It's been there through chattel slavery, through the Jim Crow, through the civil rights era, through whatever we are now. It's the same energy, all one thing, same energy, different people. Samuel Cartwright, he's no longer with us, right? Samuel Cartwright was so rich off of his success as a journalist who sold the idea that Black people weren't human. He was able to take his family on a 6-month world tour. World tour. I think it was a cruise. Back in 1850. Those were the incentives. People wanted that perspective. They wanted those words. They wanted a normalized condition of separation. They wanted to be they wanted that validated. And Samuel Cartwright fed them a validating narrative that today we read about, and we should be reading with like an abhorrent energy. We should be reading like, oh, who are these? And we like, who were those people? How did you see the pictures of like, years later, even you see pictures of lynched Black people in the South and white people all out there and smiling, and you go, how did they do that? How was that even possible? No. How did they even let that happen? You say, okay, well, at least it was back then. There's no way that could happen today. Of course it could happen today. We haven't addressed our frailty. We haven't addressed the root frailty at play. And again, I think the way we tell stories and how different it is from what is. When I got the story about chattel slavery and the civil rights era and the entire struggle between the two, Emancipation Proclamation and all that, that there was some irrational hatred for the skin color. Why do you hate us for the skin color? And I could see that, I could see how that perspective develops. But it's actually, there's so many, again, Cartwright made millions off of that. The slave owners made a ton of money. It was profit. Cartwright wrote for a magazine called The Beau's Review, and their tagline was, they're the newspaper to help you wring the most profits out of your slave. That's what it is. It's about separation. Because you can't exploit yourself, or you won't exploit yourself. Can't or won't. I'll think more about that. Either way, what is a great more likely is for you to exploit the other, is to create a separation that can be exploited. and then to create a narrative that would justify it. And even if there is a distinction, there is a separation, there is a uniqueness, and there's value in giving different language to different things. There's value in me having my name as separate than whatever your name is. The deeper truth is that we're all the same. My being, my humanness, my faculties, my nervous system, my bones and blood, my thoughts, my condition, the fact that I get hungry every day, my desire for community and love, and we all share that condition. I just named, I think, maybe like 10 things, but that was a quick rattling off. If we're really serious, our condition is, the Venn diagram, it loops. It's right on top of each other, except for a few things. Maybe you have asthma. Maybe your skin is white. Maybe your skin is darker. Maybe you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe you are female and you menstruate. Oh, that's a difference. It's interesting. Oh, it's valuable. Yeah, you need to do that in order for the whole system to work. You got to menstruate in order for the whole... Who did this? I don't know. This is just this is our condition. And it's like... It's about love, and it's about presence. And it's about accepting. And it's about pulling away from needing to have a story, this requirement, this need to have a story, because you want to be the smart guy. You want to be able to, you know it, you know things. You have facts. You don't even deal in emotions. You got those out of the way. You're feeling free. You deal in facts. This is a mythology that you hold. And millions of people are holding. And especially powerful clowns who sometimes don't even seem to know what's going on, don't even seem to know how their perspective and their lack of interest, their lack of love, their lack of interest in truth, and how that affects everyone. That the stories that we're holding are their own, and they're valid, but it's part of you should be engaging to really accept bigger truths, more truths, however you arrive at them. So whatever this is, whether, if you look at me, I'm 42 years old. Where am I? I'm alive. I'm definitely alive. I'm excitedly alive. I love being alive. I wake up every day excited. They're now talking about 3 stages of life. The truth is even more complex than that. Everything that I'm saying is a narrative. It's just words. It's an attempt to create a mythology that hopefully maps on somewhat to what reality is. We are each observing divine paradoxes because everything is. It is multiple things. And this thing we call truth will exist differently in each of our heads, and it'll be related to how we choose to see and how we choose to engage. The experience we have will be affected by the language that we have at our disposal prior, and the assumptions that we've prior accepted. And these are just words. It's all one thing. Love. Love. Which brings us back to the present. To being present now. And centering presence and love. because the words end up confusing us. The words and our efforts to measure and ascertain and hold on to a clear, coherent logic, to assert a clear, coherent logic, to feel comfortable in it, is the obstruction. That's what, that's the, it is both a tool. It was a tool and useful in our lives, and then it is also something that prevents us from seeing if we grow too attached. And so it's love, it's presence, it's acceptance, it's God. If you follow several episodes, you know some of how this conversation with me or God has gone, and the word, and my acceptance and the use of the word, even because for a long time I wouldn't use the word, but I see its value, and I see that I think it's a necessary part of the condition. I think God, the concept, is a necessary part of the human condition, particularly as we strive for something other than what is, because God represents what is plus. What is plus? Why plus? Because when I say what is, I'm only talking about a narrow subset of what is, because I'm only talking about what I know and what I can articulate. And what I know, even what I've assumed and what I can articulate. So yeah, it is one state. It's all one thing. It's also 3 states. It's also way more complex than that. It's also, early and late in each of those states. We can, as soon as we go in and look at the state, it will expand itself. Because that's how crazy this thing is. As soon as you the mundane, we deal with so many crazy things that we just accept and we don't take seriously. But you go outside and you take that leaf that you stepped on and seriously look at the leaf, and it will expand itself. Take seriously the tree that it came from, and start to, some people can devote a whole career to leaves and have a really deep understanding, and that's available. That's what's possible, even on something as mundane as a leaf. You think you want to pay attention over here because this is the other thing. Yeah, the Trump. Wow, what's they doing over there? And there's all so. But what is amazing is that it's all expansive and it includes it all, and it's all true. So, I'm gonna wrap it up with that, man. I'm wrapping up with that, and I want to give a shout to my dude, Carmen, my person hooked me up, my very good friend, with this jacket. They did the stitching. You can see here, this is some beautiful pattern stuff. I got the mic in the way. Hold on. And on the pockets as well. I love the jacket. I was looking for a fatigue joint, and then they hooked me up with one and hooked it up. Hold on, check that out. Check the back. Oh, can y'all read that? I don't even know what it says on there. I gotta read that again. But thanks again, Carmen. I'm gonna jump off. Yeah. That was more than 30 minutes, wasn't it? Oh, just 45 minutes. Take it easy. Let me start my music on again. Continue with Fool's Journey.
Slick, but I ain't boasting.
I'll see you in a week, yo. Peace.
Sipping a strange potion. My rhymes coldest when I stay focused.
That's just how I see it.
Your brain jolted. Too many fake poses, forgot this king culture. Carried a weight like I got 8 shoulders. My 16 bars is hard. My 32 doing the mostest. Double my inner searching. Found the same culprit. Damn. What if I'm limitless though? Huh? Yeah, I source metaphors from motherlands. Soon as I think I understand another land's. Wait, come again? News coverage is too troubling. Clowns stuck in their heads like the son of Sam. Turn me up round 9-7, summer jam. Toss a dumb fuck in a gutter can. Stuttering, they can't stomach it. Eating MCs and I'm loving it. Billy the process, not my government. Yeah. Team hustling, these fools rushing in. I pour out for my people and fill my cup again. Truth public, choose love, it's a new covenant. Now they all got questions about my publishing. Pay attention with extreme caution. Type of nigga that shadow box and connect with his dreams often. The man flow like a stream faucet. Awesome, I shoot flame fire, breathe awesome. I leap forward and every step is invested as a seed garden. All directions towards each corner. The peace offering is now. Cradle to coffin, we started, cause we limitless.